Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast. We're here to look at week 4 of the URC. We have a lot of squads released for the Autumn Nations series and the November test that are about to happen. So there's a lot to talk about and cover in this week's pod. I'm Thala, I'm joined by Shaun, and we're going to go through first the URC teams. We're going to go through especially the SAURC performances, obviously the big clash in Dublin between Leinster and Munster. And then we'll go into some November internationals talk and all the squads and what Rusty's released and probably hopefully a few of the other teams as well. Shaun, let's get going let's start with Friday's game. So that was Bulls edging out Connacht. It was an interesting game because in one way, it felt like the Bulls had all the control in the game. I mean, a big theme from this week is all the SA team scrums are absolutely dominant and, they win penalties, they put teams under pressure. That's their way to get into the 22. But the Bulls had that. They had a great counter attack. They were really good with the ball at times. But I'm still not really sure why the game was close at the end. They just let the door open for Connacht and they're a misconversion away from dropping 4 points in this game.
Yeah. Hi. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. It was very interesting. I think you've summed it up so well. Like the Bulls, if you just had to watch that game without seeing the score, you'd think the Bulls won by about 15. The truth is the Bulls were lucky to win.
Yeah.
Because it's such a it's like a common theme amongst South African sides where you can dominate the game and not be clinical, but then let the other side in. But mentally, you're still on top of everything, so no one really is in panic stations. Like you see it, the Sharks have done it a lot over the last couple of seasons. The Stormers have done it a fair amount, and the Bulls are guilty of doing it a bit more. It's like they need to kind of go behind to realize that they're actually not dominating anymore. And then like I've seen it with the Bulls and a few sides actually, where they've dominated, given up a lead, then come back and then still won by 20 points. It's a weird thing. It's a mental space. I've spoken for many years about South Africans not really being ruthless. Like, we just don't. I don't know what it is. Like it's like we're like cool. We believe in the processes, and then we make a few errors, and then the processes are there, but not 100% there. So yeah, the Bulls should have won by more, but to do that in Galway and still go and win, it sounds a bit weird. It's not like they really had to work hard for it in the end because it almost got taken away from them. There was like no time for anything else. And the only other thing to talk about is the red card issue. Like one thing I'm going to say straight up is that was a flat out straight red. There was no 20 minutes on it. I do understand that the reason why it was a 20-minute red card, it didn't go to the bunker because apparently from a technical point of view, I don't think they had all those resources or something. I remember the ref saying something about it. But he's twice gone to punch the guy, and that's red card and malicious for me. The cause of it, there's absolutely something there. Absolutely. But the truth is you can't really see anything, so you
Yeah.
can't blame the officials for anything. But like knowing what we know and seeing the actions that happened, I reckon he's going to have to watch his back next time he plays against any Irish side, let alone Connacht or anything, because it looked a little bit sinister. But yeah, it's like leaves a dirty taste in your mouth, the Bulls. You feel like you should have won by a lot, but you really were close to losing, like super close. It's a weird feeling because physically you feel like you've dominated and mentally, but then you look at the scoreboard and you're like, well, hang on a second, they actually were in it.
Yeah. I mean, look, the Bulls have a bit of a defensive problem. This is now, I think, in all 4 of the games, the Bulls have conceded at least 4 tries. So that's obviously not good. But at least in this game, the tackle success was a lot better than it has been. Like they've been sort of on and around 80%. This week it was 90%. So that's a positive there. I think they need to maybe play. They need to have at least two of Kaba, Van Staden or Grobler on the field just to put some pressure into the rack. Wessels as well can do a job. Yeah, Wessels is, I think, just under Jaden Hendrickse for public enemies in Ireland right now because he did something there, as you talked about.
Absolutely.
Um, so I'll take the improvement in the defense. I'll take that the counterattack looked super good. Like there was moments where you just saw the backline was starting to click. I think Safferden will need some time, but David Creel at 13 works. Moody at 14 works. De Klerk and LaRue are just so good as like auxiliary playmakers.
Willie
So,
LaRue, looked like he assisted absolutely everything that was good in the
yeah.
first half. It
No,
was
he was
insane.
fantastic.
Like, I probably should have pulled his numbers, but I didn't. Um, but it was insane. Like, you're right about that counterattack. It's really awesome to see because it's what you'd expect from a side with that much quality. Like that transition is something that so many teams work on, but it's also so natural for people. Like 99% of rugby players are naturally want to attack. Like it's natural. Like there are very few that just want to scrum and defend. I think everyone wants to break down the wing. I mean, we even give Peter Steph du Toit his time to shine on the trams. So yeah, that is a positive. And the other thing, and I know you talk about Klaba, but Rudolph and Namaklaba were machines on tackle wise. I mean, they nearly did. It was 29 tackles between the both of them. Like that
Yeah.
is huge.
I mean, yeah, so Rudolf, Kaba, and Ludwig, all three had over 20 tackles. Wiese was at 19 as we say goodbye to Sean for a little bit. Wessels has 18 and Tirana's 18. Look, I think from 4 to 8 for the Bulls, positions number 4 to 8, I've actually been quite impressed, especially because there hasn't been Nokia, Arif Loh's been missing, Cam Hanekom's still injured. Like this is second choice, bordering on third choices on these positions, and they're all playing really well. They're all contributing. Franco's obviously been great. Jacquemi, I think, had a really good game. I think he's building up some good form. So I think the pack is good, and I think there's going to be a constant theme. Can't really fault much of the pack. Set piece was good, scrums and lines were good, collision was good, and like I said, it wasn't many missed tackles. Backs weren't bad for the Bulls. It's just, yeah, like just lapse of concentration. You let in 4 tries. Like it's hard to win games when you do that. And I think that's what is the problem for the Bulls. All of these games are fights when they don't have to be. Like against
Yeah.
Ospreys in the first round, that should have probably been like a 20-point game. Against Leinster, that also should have been like a 15-point game, and this week as well. So that's the unfortunate thing. So I think, and obviously now the Boks aren't going to be there for the Glasgow game. That's going to be a big match. I think for the Bulls, it's just about almost like damage limitation almost in that game. Because I mean, Glasgow's fantastic. It looks like they'll still keep their Scottish players. So if it's full blast Glasgow against pretty much a second team Bulls, I mean, obviously Glasgow will win. But at least some things are starting to come together. But it is a bit concerning that like it's too many tries that are being conceded. Like, yes, the Bulls tend to do that at Loftus. They tend to go, okay, we'll score 45, you'll score 40. But away from home, it's becoming an issue as well because you can't, like, the Bulls are happy to give you possession and to sort of play on the counter with someone like LaRue, as we talked about creating. But if you let in all those tries and now you have to score 20, 30 points in Wales and in Ireland and Italy, that's not going to work for you.
The most concerning part about it is I don't know, I'm struggling to find a word, but almost like the precedent you set as a
Mm.
team to go away and be loose on defense. Because I can guarantee you, we know that in the Champions Cup, if any South African side goes deep, they're going to be playing away from home. And when it comes to, there will come a time where, and the Bulls have shown it, where you've got to go away and play a Munster, play a Leinster, play a Glasgow in a quarterfinal, semi-final, possibly a final. Like you don't want to default back to those sort of scratchy periods.
Yeah.
I know it's early in the season, but you kind of want to set that foundation early. like you want to get it set in. Like that's got to be the benchmark, and that is there's we're just not going to relinquish those numbers. You can have a good day on defense, and you can be pretty crappy on attack, and the other side's beats you by scoreboard pressure with a couple of penalties, and then they score two tries. That's a different story. But doing this whole like we'll score more than you no matter what you score Harlequins vibe is not sustainable if you want to go deep like the Bulls do. The Bulls really want to. They've got enough numbers to have a squad that can go deep in the Champions Cup and win the URC. We know that the URC is a bit of a touchy subject for them because they've lost so many finals and they've come so close, and they really are running out of time. Like this is it. Like this is it for Villy. This is it probably for Marcel Coetzee, for a couple of the older guys. Like this is their chance to do it. The squad's been together long enough. They've got the depth. They're able to rotate. You don't want to slip up somewhere and then force yourself to playing a quarterfinal away because of these stupid games,
Yeah.
because you've given up points, and then you have a bad one-off. You don't really want to do that. And I think that something that needs to be addressed quite urgently.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, interesting stat from the game. Willie Leroux passed more than Keegan Johannes. So just shows how important Leroux is. And look, obviously we'll talk about the Springbok squad later. If he's on the Boks squad and the Bulls get him for 80 games, I am more than happy as a Bulls fan. Let's go to Joburg next. And the Lions played Scarlets, and a tough watch for a lot of the game, but the Lions did pull it through in the end, winning
It
29.
was horrible for like 60 minutes.
It was so bad. I think it's because obviously these are almost like two sides of the same coin in terms of teams, even colors, and they play quite similarly. They want to obviously play with the ball, but both teams are so low in confidence and form that there was so many mistakes being made, like no momentum could be built. But at the end of the day, Lions pack, I think, shone through. Really strong performances, obviously from Kabakanye and Westhuizen at lock. Jared Keynes came on relatively early and he was player of the match. Jason Pretorius was really good. And then, just at least some sort of platform for the backs that the Lions have really good backs and we know what they can do. Shaun, my concern though is I don't know how much we take from this. I don't know how much of this is Lions were good as opposed to Scarlets are just really bad this season.
Yeah. So firstly, it's really important for the Lions to get a win.
Yeah.
Like that is the biggest thing. And it's very much, if you had to chat on Thursday or Friday, it would have very much been a case of even if it was 9-6, it doesn't really matter, like as long as it's a win. So they got it. It was a diabolical, I almost feel like it was an opening 60 minutes that could rather have been forgotten. But the finish and how they built up to their win was pretty impressive. And you're right about like Scarlets, it's two teams both in the same space, same colors, same vibes, and the South Africans got on top. So yeah, and did I see that JC Pretorius is out? He's injured. I think he's out for a while. Yeah, that's huge. He's one of those guys that has really been almost the figure in that team that players would look to, to kind of pick it up. Like, listen, we need to pick up the tempo, and then you just watch him and the vibes come back. So that's a bit of a bummer, but it's a good win. I'm glad. I'm not glad that it's been overshadowed by the Welsh fans of all people giving us shit for an empty Ellis Park. That was literally.
It
That
was
like
it was especially empty. Like even for Ellis Park, it was just like I felt like there were echoes sometimes.
100%. Yeah, that was wild. But the fact that it was the Welsh fans complaining about support, the irony wasn't lost on any South Africans. And the thing is we all say the same thing to all the Lions fans and to the Lions Rugby Union all the time. But you know what it's like? Like you could hate your sibling as much as possible. The minute anyone else picks on them, you're just like, hey, buddy, we're gonna go to war.
Yeah.
So yeah, Wales can expect at least 85 points in the final test of the year, just as a thanks for coming. So yeah, good win for the Lions. Did they bag the bonus point? I think they did.
Yes.
Yes. So like that's even better considering like two things we'll remember out of this game is how bad the opening part of that game was and how poor the sides were and and the fact that the Lions finally got a win. Like the fact that they did that and then got a bonus point is pretty positive.
Yeah. Look, and I mean, how the competition set up, the Lions are pretty much in South Africa until the end of January. So this is a really good opportunity for them just to build some momentum. Like, if the Lions have any hope of this, I mean, we did our tiers pod last week. I don't think they'll be anywhere near the top eight, but if they at least want to have a decent season, they need to get five out of the nine home games. So this is now the chance for them to build on this momentum. They obviously, I mean, it's a cruel thing to say, but they won't be disrupted by the Springboks leaving in November because it's pretty much one or two of them. They can really just get these matches on a few matches, good matches on a row, and just be a bit more competitive. So the last 20 minutes where they tightened up, which is a bit strange for the Lions, that actually was probably the best part. So I'm looking forward to them doing that. And quick shout out to a bit of Saffers abroad. Between Gerhard Taylor and Marnus van der Merwe, they had 7 steals in the game.
Wow.
Gerhard Taylor had 4, Marnus van der Merwe had 3. Yeah, they had obviously had really good games. Yeah, so I mean Taylor, I didn't realize he was still 25. So I mean he's 24 actually, so he's still really young. But yeah, they played pretty well.
Yeah. I actually completely missed that. That's a huge stat. Like
Mm.
it's unusual for players to get more than two, like so that's pretty wild to have two players in one game go three and above. Um, but yeah, it's a win. It's 5 points in the bag. And the Lions, out of all the games this weekend, there were only two teams that won at home, which is quite something.
Yeah, weird weekend in the URC. Just
Very
everyone
anti-top 14 vibes we giving
pretty
out, eh?
literally. Yeah, like going away is actually where it's best. And speaking of, we go to Durban, where Ulster beat the Sharks 34-26. Also, a wild game in so many ways because similar to what we said with the Bulls, the Sharks had the forward platform. They were winning scrum penalties like nobody's business. But goodness, Ulster were just number one, really good with the ball in hand. They really tore apart the Sharks at times. And number two, geez, the Sharks on the opposite end just looked desperate without the ball. So yeah, lots of worries. I mean, Shaun, or listeners, you can just copy paste pretty much what you've been saying for the last 2-3 years now about the Sharks. I don't think much has changed. I mean, yeah, a little bit quickly on Ulster. I mean, really good performance. They're actually looking like, the Ulster of old, like in the first season or two in the URC, where, they had a pretty competitive forward pack. They carried well, I think Augustus has added a lot to this team. Timoni's obviously in good form. Ian Henderson looks, 2 or 3 years younger. And then their backs, when they're all fit, you have McCloskey and Hume causing havoc. You have Michael Lowry, who's obviously really fast and really light, as we'll talk about pretty soon. And, Vandercock was just, I don't know, given like a child, it was like a child on cocaine. Like he was just absolutely everywhere.
That man, he gives 150% every chance he gets. And
Yeah.
we've seen it from back in his sevens days. It's amazing and it's awesome. The Sharks, they just looked like life's too hard. They looked to dumb it down a little bit more. They just looked like it had been disrupted by the Springboks coming back or the Springboks leaving. I don't know, add whichever you feel is suitable for that time. It is very much a copy paste scenario for them. But yeah, they really want to play better. The big thing for me is the Sharks generally start shaky. It almost like they take 30 minutes to get in the game.
Mm.
They almost they need to try stuff and it doesn't have to work, but they're going to be on top of the game. Like you kind of feel like they've got the momentum. Then someone in the team's going to be like, listen, guys, let's just kick to the corner. They get 2 penalties, they kick to the corner, and then they score a driving maul. Like that's almost what the Sharks need to get going. they try a whole bunch of things beforehand, and then they end up doing a driving maul, and then life gets better. They get scrum penalties, and hopefully they kick on, which they didn't. Um, the fact that the Sharks are conceding these tries, that first try was impressive. The Sharks have issues on defense when it comes to anything from 13 and outside of it,
Yeah.
from a channel point of view. I have no problem with the plan. I have a problem with the contingencies that are not working, because you do that when the Springboks and when Jacques Nienaber and Rassie brought in the defensive setup first, you would have noticed that like Lukhanyo Arm would have been shooting, or any of our wingers would have been shooting. But generally it was 12 because he was normally the closest. But you'd always see Damien Delaney working his ass off to get across that field, and everyone was folding in behind him. And it's just not working for the Sharks. The one thing, that first try from Ulster really looked like a targeted try. It looked like this is where the space is. It is going to be out wide, so we have to keep looping. And if we get those offloads, we're going to get the space. And they scored a great try. And a try that wasn't the end of the game for me, for the Sharks, or a winning of the game for Ulster. It was just a really good try. And then they just kept the pressure on. And then the Sharks crumbled. And what's it, 20-0 down or something like that? It's just not great. Not great for the Sharks. It's not great for many sides playing this Ulster team. Yeah, it just wasn't great. I will say something, that Ulster backline, barring Mikey Lowry, is huge. They still got to welcome back Balakoon, who's also, I think that whole backline is 6 foot, barring Mike Lowry. Like, and their midfield has some clout. So that's quite something. It's working for them as well. Like, they've connected. They are polar opposites to what they were last year. Like, it's insane how different they are playing. The confidence they're playing with now, they're going to give Leinster and Munster a run for their money in Interpro. But I don't know when they play. It'll probably be a little later on in the year. I can't remember who they're playing this weekend. I'll check later. Oh, the Lions. So it doesn't, like, they've got the big Interpro games later. If they can go unbeaten until then they will give Munster and Leinster a good run for their money. Like, now I think you could probably put pressure on them, and they might sort of fumble it a little bit from an Interbro point of view. But yeah. And then, yeah, listen, I want to talk about this red card.
Sure.
So it's come out now. So the URC have banned Mapimpi for 5 games. They gave the grid. Gerhard's got it on his socials in terms of mitigation and whatnot. Interestingly enough, is Mapimpi's games that he's listed on as missing or is using for his ban are the Springbok games, which is quite interesting considering he's not selected. He was obviously selected in terms of paperwork for the Springboks, so they've obviously put him down as an option on a paperwork point of view for World Rugby in order for this to for him to be selected. Yeah. So I also appreciate the fact that I'm probably the only person fighting this fight, and therefore I very close to being wrong, more wrong than right. But I'm gonna have my say anyway. If you look at the mechanics of what Koch has done to Lowry in terms of a tackle, a pickup, a twist, and he didn't drive him down, but he put him down. Like, that's a tip tackle. Like, it's quite clear. And also, Mikey Lowry weighs like 12 kilograms. So it was easy for Koch to do it. And fortunately for Lowry weighing so little, it was easy for Koch to put him down softly. Okay, so there's that. The Mapimpi one, I don't feel like it's foul play, which is weird for me because I'm generally quite a stickler for the rules and everything. But if I ever look at those mechanics, like Mapimpi's tracking and then he shoots and smokes him and he hits him absolutely square on. It's not a side-on tackle. He has hit him straight. And Mapimpi is pretty solid and he has hit a really light guy. And Lowry has been driven back by that. Everyone is now fixated on the slow-mo where they say Mapimpi then grabs his legs. You're making it sound like he's doing something secondary, and it's not a secondary motion in my view. If you had to put two of those things side by side, and I haven't done it yet, but if you put them both, those tackles side by side in real time, you will see the difference in timing that each of them take. And I still feel I was hanging on for this ruling to come, hoping that that red card will be rescinded because yeah, I just think it's because he's hit him straight on. He's hit him with such power, and then he's followed through on the tackle, which everyone does. If you're hitting someone square on, you're going for behind the knees, you're driving your shoulder. Like if you do that tackle on anyone that weighs 10 kilograms or more, that becomes literally a textbook tackle. And I don't think it is foul play. To be fair, in the ruling, it was registered not as foul play as reckless. It was registered as a reckless tackle. It still doesn't sit right with me. Um, but again, I'm literally the only one doing this, so I clearly have fan tinted glasses on, and I'm probably wrong, but I just wanted to have my say.
Yeah. Look, first of all, crazy try that Ulster scores from all of that
Oh,
because it was a crazy counter attack. I think Doak puts on the grabber for Tom Stewart to score, the hooker, and like pretty much 80-minute meter try. I think you convinced me. Like we were discussing this on the group, and I was like, I thought the Mapimpi tackle, it looks worse because there's more of a tip, the legs are a bit more over, he kind of isn't driving him down. Then when you look at it again through what you've said, you're like, actually, yeah, it is just a purpose of momentum that he's flown in. Larry was also flying in essentially because he was trying to sort of get the counterattack going. And, because it seems like Larry's as light as a feather, the momentum just sort of tipped him over essentially.
there's one more thing I would like to add is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is because of Mapimpi shepherding and then shooting, is Lowry, and I think this is quite important, and I'm by no means a scientist or anything like that, but Lowry is not grounded with any of his feet. So
Yeah.
generally, you brace for tackle, you do have feet on the ground. Lowry, both of his feet are basically in the air, like he is not grounded, and that also impacts the way that he goes. Because if you hit anything in the air, if you hit it slightly above the center, which Mapimpi did, the legs are going to fling up anyway. Like, I don't think it's a bad tackle technique. I'm glad you're half on my side. Like, I could start this petition. I'm going to make this happen.
No, you've he's got one convert here. Like, yeah, as you
Yes.
said, it's unfortunate for him that essentially he was delivering, like you said, a pretty textbook tackle. It's just that I guess the recklessness aspect of it is, it's tough to say this in the moment, but it's like you just have to be able to be aware and in control of things, which is where
Yes.
I'd be like, okay, you can maybe give it a 20-minute red then, but maybe not a ban. But yeah, it's like I think the 5 weeks thing is quite excessive, but obviously Mapimpi also has a bit of a record, so I'm sure that was an aggravating factor for him. Um, it was so weird because at that moment in the game, the Sharks were coming back. I think it was 12 points to 20. They're on top of their scrum. The Roaring Moors on top. Ulster's lineout was all over the place. Their scrum was all over the place. And then they concede a yellow card and a red card in such quick succession. And it just takes away all, and then the counterattack try, it just takes away all sort of impetus they had in the game. Yeah, I'll add to the many problems with the Sharks, but you said there's something wrong with the defense out wide, and I think that's true. They also just they're not really good at either making, I think as a defense now, you either need to have speed or make dominant hits or make turnovers, like at least one of those three things, because, attacks are just too good now. So if they're not really, they kind of a rush defense, but not really a rush defense. They make a few dominant hits, but it doesn't seem like it's an emphasis for the team. But they're definitely horrible at making turnovers. Like they are, I think, last in the competition for turnovers. They literally have half the turnovers that the Stormers have. I think they have only 13 in the 4 games. Um, and I don't think James Venter was the best pilfer in the world, but he's clearly missed because there just isn't really anyone putting pressure on in the ruck ball and just trying to slow things down. So Ulster win 7 turnovers and the Sharks win one. So that, just kills a lot of things the Sharks are trying to do. And yeah, I think that, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, also, it was a weird performance from Masuku. Like, kicking was off, and then his distribution was a bit off. Maybe it's because it's his first game, or like first start. Jordan Hendrickson, obviously, he had a pretty weird end of last season. It's just, yeah, like the Sharks are that upside down world where, you know, if you're not one of those elite Springboks, though they have like the serum, maybe from Rassie, to be immune from Sharksitis, but everyone else, like, it just takes you down with you, basically.
Yeah, and it's weird. I I saw less of that Springbok group mentality
Yeah,
of just like shake everything off and just go to the next set piece or the next thing and let's do it. I saw less of that from like the Springboks, and it probably has something to do with the fact that we're in October.
yeah,
If this was later in the season, like it's not everyone's season only turns into an emergency 5 games from the end when you need 3 wins. Like, and then it's not about what happens now. Like, what happens now is great. It eases off the pressure later, but very seldom you look back and you go, do you remember that game against Ulster if they didn't concede this or whatever? Like, it's really hard. And with the Sharks, it's every game you can look back at. So they really kind of got to do more. But that drive and that desire to be much better or shake it off and move on wasn't quite there from the Springbok Sharks.
yeah. So yeah, the Sharks have Scarlets. Luckily, I guess for them, that's an opportunity. Look, if they lose the Scarlet,
And the Scarlets are like, oh, we have the Sharks, luckily.
but it is one of those, like, if they lose this game, I think heads will roll. So I think Plum was very disappointed after the game and frustrated in the post-match interview. So like, yeah, obviously a big performance hopefully is coming.
I just want to say something. This stuff that is happening, this is above a player level. I would go as far as saying it's potentially above Plum's level.
Yeah,
Like there's something not right, and it's not a surprise to everybody that's listening and everybody that is a Sharks fan or wants to know what's going on because we've been saying it for 3 or 4 years now. But there's something that's off there.
yeah,
Like, what is it? I don't know, but they're getting to the point now where you are not getting return on investment, and that's
yeah,
really what life is about in the professional sports era. Like, the money's not going to be around forever. The irony is if there's a massive shakeup and a whole bunch of money leaves the Sharks, and they've still got players contracted, you probably find they'll have an absolute stellar year because the pressure's off or something. I don't know. The
mm,
Sharks players and everyone look like they're having a jaw. Like the social media vibes, which is not probably not the best place to gauge it on. Like it looks like it's a good environment. You don't hear people saying, "Oh, the environment is really shit." Like I heard from so and so that they don't like going to training because of X, Y, and Z. You're not hearing that sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't know what's going
yeah.
on. It's just not lacquer, man.
I think they almost as confused as we are about why they're so bad. I think
That's a good
they're
point.
probably all looking at each other every day and train, being like, why are we so crap? Like, and I'm sure at practice, you know, Masuka and Hendricks are flying, Mapimpi's catching every ball, like, Chituka and Buthelezi are just dominating in rucks and in tackles. But come game day, it just looks a bit, yeah, it just looks so flat. Look, one other small positive. I think I've said this for a few weeks now, but the Marvin Ori signing was really good. Like it just helps so much with their locks. Matazima also helping with their front row as well. Like, you know, I get maybe that's the solution. Like the Sharks have gone too much into the big game hunting thing. And luckily for them, we'll talk about the box squad in a few moments. It's some of their box are kind of sort of being phased out of like the main squad. So now they can actually build a squad that is mostly there for the 18 games and, have Koch and Mapimpi and really set the standard. Well, Mapimpi from the stands for the next few weeks, but have those guys set the standard,
Too
have
soon,
them
bro.
try to lead, sorry,
Too soon.
and have them try to lead something because because of what's happened with, like, because of how bad the Sharks are and now how bad their players are, you have Mapimpi, both Hendrikses, Masuku, Koch, Buthelezi, both Chitukas, pretty much all available to you at least until, the end of the year. So this is probably a blessing in disguise that after this week, Plum has a lot of his team together. They need to sort something out. And basically, when the Springboks sort of come back later, they can just be integrated into it. So we'll see. I mean, I feel like we've said this a few times in the last few years. So
Exactly. The whole thing, and we said it last year, create your vibe.
yeah.
Create it. Let the Springboks come into it. Don't wait for them to come so they can help create your personality. Create yourself. Have a vibe, have a thing, and they can come in and out of it. And you'll very quickly find out if guys don't like it or not. You just
Mm.
need to be prepared for people to leave, and people will leave. Like the thing is you can sign these big names, and they're going to put bums on seats, but not for 3 years of L's.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So to a team that's actually doing quite well with their resources, that's the Stormers right now, one of three unbeaten teams in the URC. They win 31-13 against Zebre. Yeah, forwards are looking great. Sasha's looking fantastic. Warikeland did some good Warikeland things and some crazy Warikeland things with the giving away the intercept. But yeah, Shaun, like this team is just really getting it together. Like we'll talk about some of the Springbok squad and some of the additions there, but it's all these players are really just coming together and there's momentum. It doesn't seem like they're playing too much of a loose game plan. They're trusting their forwards. They're recommitting in defense. And then, yeah, you just give the platform for Sasha to do to do his magic, Ron now to do his magic defensively. And yeah, like you have a recipe for a team that can win week in, week out.
Yeah, they're looking good. They're opposite of the Sharks in that they're fighting massively outside of their weight category and winning. It sounds a bit disrespectful, but I think you kind of get what I'm saying. Like
Yeah. They
they're
don't have all the big
performing.
superstars.
Yeah, yeah. Like they've got some stars, but they've got more cohesion. They've got more of a team. And it's huge. I think there are three players who are currently not involved in the Springbok setup that are probably vital to what's going on. One is obviously Evan Roos. Like I know I'm not a fan, but you can't ignore what he's doing. Like
Mhm.
he is whatever his issues are for Test rugby that Rassie sees, I'm pretty sure he's working on them, but he's performing elsewhere. So I'm sure that we will see him in the Springbok game before the next World Cup if he carries on like this. The other one is Ron now. Like he really has changed the way that backline is. Like he's brought a lot of balance. He's starting to show a little bit more of his attacking flair now because everything's settled. But there's a player that is been an unsung hero and I think has also been vital for the Stormers this season. That's Stefan Ungara. Like Ungara has been impressive. I know like De Villiers is there. De Villiers, I'm warming up to him slowly because I wasn't sold. Like I knew he was good. I just didn't think he'd be able to cut it on this level where we like having Springbok conversations because he's almost there now. Lineman camps and all that. Like there's a lot of players and it's hard to single out one, but I think Stefan Ungara is having a really good season and I really feel that his linking between the forwards and the backs, his management and his kicking, I think has really helped the Stormers a lot. And he deserves some kudos.
Yeah. Look, I mean, and the thing is, you can add quite a few other names to that.
Mm, mm.
Jean-Jacques Coetzee has been really good at hooker. I think he's outplayed Andre Guventa, and it's so weird that he's only 25. Like, I don't know, it seems like he's been there forever. So you think, okay, maybe he's closer to 30. But like he's been really good. We mentioned Paul de Villiers as well. And I mean, BJ Dixon has made the Springbok squad, so he's kind of out of that category, but he's obviously come really well. He's played very fantastic. And their locks, just a strong lock rotation there. Andre Smith and Ruben van Heerden to start. Then you have JD Schikkerling coming off the bench. And then Salman Murata's sort of hanging in the shadows as well. That's just a ridiculous.
They've got
Um,
options, man.
yeah. Look,
Like, and
if
they're all the thing is about these locks is they're all talented, but they all are fitting into that puzzle as a block pairing, no
yeah,
matter what the rotation is people are picking up the slack. Like you're not losing anything, but you're resting your best players. And it's not to say that the starting or the bench are your best because it's kind of everyone. Like it's
yeah,
the Springbok front row, the 40-minute front row, swap in, swap out. Like only everyone's only playing 40 minutes, hypothetically, and then you bring on another great one. So
yeah. And yeah, it's worked out that like Van Heerden obviously has played both like tight head and loose head lock and ran the line out. I mean, he can sort of take a break from that. Schickerling can run that when he needs to. So yeah, I mean, look, and I mean, they literally have a prop that's now made to the Springbok squad. Like, a lot of things are just coming together. So if, there's they probably don't have the depth that the Bulls have, but if they can just keep sort of a lot of this core together for a lot of the season, like they really can put themselves in contention. And look, obviously, because we'll talk about Leicester in a few minutes, but because of Leinster losing and because the Bulls have dropped a game already and Glasgow's already dropped a game, like the teams that are likely to be competing with the Stormers, like they have a bit of a lead now. And they've played Leinster already. They've now going to tackle 3 matches after this week. So this is an opportunity for them to really build a lead to get themselves into sort of home quarterfinal, home semi-final contention. And yeah, like we said with the Bulls, you'd rather be facing Leinster and Munster at home in a way. So yeah, Storms are really coming together quite well right now.
yeah, and it's great for them. Like the Stormers playing a knockout game at home is epic. Like the
Yeah.
fans and everything, like, it really becomes a 16th man. The interesting on the sort of squad conversation about the Bulls almost have maybe 35 players that they're going to be rotating around. The Stormers probably have 28. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they've got guys that they're going to have to start moving around. Like Ruan Nell's played 12. When you lose Sasha and Willemse, Nell can play 12 if you need. You can move Wandy into 15. He can play wing. He can play 13. So that's how he's managing that rotation with fewer players. The lock rotation, your Lucy's, you move one into lock potentially. You know what I mean? They've got how sustainable it is for the whole season, I don't know, but the Stormers have shown that they can also just carry on a hard season on just on Gears, So they're looking great.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Springbok squad for November. So we have Roger Rasmus has announced a squad of about 30, I think 37 players. Um, I think the main sort of stories, I think let's first of all talk about the uncapped player, which is Zachary Porthen, the tight head. So he's 22, if I'm not mistaken. He was a junior Bok, I think a junior Bok captain as well. And, he's been really good at when he's come on or when he started for the Stormers in their scrum. Like you don't see much of a difference when he's like we were worried when Nettling Forshire got injured, but the Stormers have been really good since that injury happened. So, 21 years old, born in 2004, which is ridiculous. And, it's we obviously just, almost in a transition with our tight heads, Mahuba's injured, Nyakane's injured, Vincent Koch seems to be sort of on the out. So someone like Porthen coming in is obviously a good sign of, there's someone young that can sort of continues the strength that like the likes of Volkolo and Thomas du Toit are bringing in. And between him and Klavakanyi and, whatever situation is, like those are the two under 30 tighties that we have right now that are in bulk contention. So yeah, good call for him to be called up here.
Yeah, it's huge. Like it's the kind of call up that I think 99% of fans and just kind of went like, huh, what? Um, it makes a lot of sense. Um, he's done well. He hasn't really done so well where you're thinking he needs to get a Springbok call up.
I don't think
Um, but we must also remember that Don is not a scrum machine guy. Don is a live scrum man.
Yeah.
That's how he wants the Springboks coached. What better way to get a youngster in to see what he's got, A, B, like you can get into scrum 30,000 times more than normal, like really see what he's got, get to learn in a real live Springbok environment. Like it's pretty huge. And I think you will know pretty quickly, let's say the first week, you'll know whether I think he's good enough to get a cap against Italy or something like that, or do we have to have someone else like closer on standby in case someone drops ahead of the Irish week, you know?
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's great. And the thing is, he's not going to be just carrying bags. Like he's literally there to be a Springbok scrum machine. And by doing that, he has the opportunity to force his way into earning his first cap in 2025.
Yeah. Look, I mean, because it's Wales, it's Ireland and Japan that are being faced, like there's opportunities. So he could actually come on or at least play some of those games. Um, so the tight heads are him, Volker and Tom Stotoy. Loose heads, you have Steenekamp back into the squad for the first time this year. I think a big boost for that because the depth chart the depth chart was struggling there. Oxen Chen, Juan Fenter, who's kept his place and done pretty well. Vessels is probably going to be more of a hooker because Malcolm Marx is the only other recognized hooker that's been selected, unless you want to count Marco van Staden. Bongi
And Jan
Mbambi,
Grobelaar.
oh, and sorry, excuse me, and Jan Grobel has been selected. Thanks for that, Sean. So Mars van der Merwe drops out completely. Bongi Mbambi is a standby player. Yeah, it's an interesting one because, Grobel, I think he's had a pretty good start to the season. He was really shaky, after he was in the box last year. It seemed like last season, like his lineouts were off and everything, but he seemed to have recovered a lot of that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at hooker. I assume Vessels is the second choice, and Fubala maybe will come on for some of these other games. I think there's an agreement that the Japanese-based players are available for the Japan game, but not for the Wales game. So I assume Fubala will then feature in the Wales game. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I quite like our sort of hooker stocks when Grobelaar's fit because we have options then. We're not one injury away from, you know,
Van
playing
Staden.
Malcolm Marx all the game and Marco van Staden. So I'm quite happy with that. I think he's quite solid. Like he can really hold up his end quite well. Like he's not going to be stealing like Marks. He's not going to be doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but he's going to hold up his end. And when he gets back into form, then we can really see what he's got. But
Yeah.
we're okay there. We're just a little bit green at two. Like if it starts going wonky for both of our new hookers, then we in shit.
Which I guess is why Monambi is at least on standby, that if Marks has something happen to him, like he'll probably be roped in very quickly to play. And he looked
And
pretty
probably
decent at
start.
Kosovo. Yeah.
He'll probably come in and start. Like I think it'll be a case of that. Like, and the other hookers will know. They'll know straight up. Like, listen, if Malcolm drops, just know that like Bonambi is going to start next week, and one of you will bench.
Yeah.
I can totally see that happening. I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah. Locks are pretty solid. Jean Klein coming in, like he's obviously over his injuries. He played pretty well for Munster. We talked about
Massive.
yeah. We talked about Ben Jason Dixon. He's in the loose forward rotation. Only really one recognized eight in Jasper Visa. Obviously, we talked about Evan Roos not really featuring into the equation. So Johan Augustus is and Evan Roos are part of the standby players, so maybe they feature later. Backline, it's at scrum half, again, no Faf de Klerk, no Jaden Hendrickse, but Williams, Van der Berg and Reinach have been trusted. Fly halves. I was listening to interesting conversation Will and Robbie Squid Rugby were having about whether England's three tens are better, or which of the three tens are better between England's three tens or South Africa's three tens, and which crew would you rather have? Which I think is I think it's a debate you can have on both sides. But yeah, I think there's a decent argument for saying this is probably the best 10 sort of depth chart you can have in world rugby right now, but with Sasha, Pollard and Lebok.
So good. So good. And the thing is we have so many options, man. Like
Mm.
we have two tens that can really play a set game plan with a little bit of movements outside of it, and we have one ten that can play almost two game plans, but he's got a third that he just does all on his own.
Yeah, pretty much. Centers, Estes and Dialindi at inside, Moody and Creel probably the outside center options. And then I think the big news is that Arendse and um, Edwin van der Merwe are back in the back three. They're going to give options there. Van der Merwe's actually been playing a bit of fullback for the Sharks, so that gives an option. And then now Seb de Klerk also been at least on standby. So I don't know if you can call it being called up or whatever the case is, but yeah, quarter called up, I guess. So he might feature
Yeah.
maybe later in the tournament as well. Yeah, I mean, not too many surprises. A lot of continuation from the Rugby Championship. I think pretty much the only players that have been dropped from the Rugby Championship is Koch, Willie Leroux. I think there's one other
Mapimpi.
as well. Yeah, and then pretty much all the players on standby if you count them as
Mm.
dropped. But yeah, Porthen is probably the biggest winner from that, and then a few players that have been injured that are coming back into the team. So yeah, interesting squad, and I think because of how the matches are structured, you have Japan, then France, then Italy, then Ireland, then Wales. You can kind of structure it to be like, okay, well, maybe we only need Itzebeth and Kolisi for the two big games between France and Ireland, whereas they can really sort of take a bit of a break in these other games. And then you can sort of test out a few combinations. Not saying that, I mean, I think Italy especially could give us a run for their money if, we play a full second team and are not really at the races. But there's enough there that you can sort of test out and we can sort of find out a few more answers to questions. Like, obviously, I think where we left the rugby championship is that we're starting to investigate some things in the back line. We tried pretty much a younger back line, with Sasha, Willemse, and Moody being given more responsibility, with Ethan Hooker coming into the back three. They're trying to find out, okay, are they able to do this at this level? So, you could either play them in Stade France or at the Aviva and see how they sort of handle that sort of game away from home. Or you can just go, well, we'll trust sort of the golden oldies and you come in for the other games. Or you can do a mix and match of both. So, yeah, it's Rassie Rasmus. He can do anything. But there is a lot of ways genuinely to that the squad can be maneuvered around.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're definitely taking a different avenue to what we're used to. That's my feel. Like th keeping a similar team for both the Argentina tests was the first one that was a bit weird. Like we're not
Mhm.
used to that. And now a lot of continuity going into November. It's unusual. And again, it's just showing that Rusty's cooking something and something's going on. And I don't know if it's forced on him or if he's trying something new or he wants to give guys another look. It'll be, yeah, only time will tell. But we've got players here that you could name a number of 23s that would be competitive in all the big games.
Yeah.
And that's really what we want. I think the most important thing is making sure that we start getting like solid and ruthless against Japan and Italy, and give the guys, make the starting players for France and Ireland look back and go, there's pressure coming, and it makes training and life a lot better for
Mhm.
everybody.
Yeah. So yeah, 5 matches. Start with Japan in less than 2 weeks now. In Twickenham, then France, then Italy, then Ireland, then Wales. Most of those teams have also announced their squads. Ireland's was last week. They had to bring in now a few other players because of injuries to Mac Hansen and possibly Bandiaki and Stuart McCloskey. France have announced their squad. Quite a few they have quite a few injuries actually in their team. So I think there's about 8 or 9 players that would be first choice that are not probably not going to be available for the South Africa game. So now Thomas Ramos has also dropped out for personal reasons, so hopefully everything is fine there. Um, you have like there's no Mavaka, there's no Bai, there's no Kroos, there's no Mofana. So yeah, I mean I think France we always say France is pretty strong depth-wise, so we'll see like how they can go about it as well. England have announced a squad because it's a day of the week, and Steve Borthwick likes to announce a squad. Scotland have as well, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, Sean. I mean, obviously we're trying to wrap up 50 squads in about 2 minutes, but I don't know if there's anything that stood out for you there.
No, it's quite this November series seems to have a little something more about it.
Mm,
Maybe it's because it's right here, and I'm interested to see what happens. Obviously, the changes in the Springboks, or the lack of changes for that matter, and the questions we have. But we've got so many stories like Ireland and the All Blacks, Chicago again. We all keen to see how Ireland get on, like whether it's a hate watch or a fan watch. Like we
mhm.
want to have a look at it. Same with France. And then everyone is all doing that for us. It's weird for us not to face England. I think England are still going to be a side that people are going to have to learn to worry about come the next World Cup. And obviously, we want to see how the Wallabies do, see how their year goes, how the All Blacks do. It's very interesting. And I think I'm hoping that Argentina will carry on their rugby championship vibes into November.
Yeah, I guess yeah, because it's essentially 2 years from the World Cup. You don't want to be, you have enough room to fix things, but you don't want to be like, oh gosh, there's too many things to fix. So I think especially for like older teams like Ireland, you don't want to be in a position where you're just like, oh, all these old guys aren't going to make it and now I have to change everything. Or New Zealand be like, oh, this razor thing isn't working. Now I have to change everything. So yeah, I mean, maybe close to the time we can do like sort of who's on the hot seat and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think the interesting thing is just seeing how these teams go because I think from the last, 12 months, seems like England's developing and Australia and Argentina, they have a chance now to sort of reinforce that with, some strong performances in November. Obviously people have been saying Ireland is sort of wobbling and New Zealand's wobbling and they kind of can sort that out between themselves. I think, yeah, so we'll see. I think there's a lot of interest. And look, Wales now have a new coach as well, so we could see how Steve Tandy tries to solve things. Dan Lydiate, I didn't even know he was retired, honestly, but he's an assistant coach now with Reece Patchell. So yeah, there's I think a few interesting things to watch out for in this November internationals.
Yeah, there'll be stories. I think everyone must just be careful. Like, if guys start hitting their straps now, I still think it's a little early for to like far away from the World Cup. There are few sides that will be able to hit it now and maintain it all the way through. So I don't think we can be picking it. Also, if I'm not mistaken, this is the last opportunity sides have to work the world rankings in order for the pool selection. So
Yeah,
it's actually quite important for all of that. I don't know the permutations of everything right now, but I'm going to find it and then we'll chat about it next week.
yeah. But basically, Australia and Argentina have to sort out between themselves the sixth spot, and they can be sort of a leader of a group. And I think all of us in World Rugby don't want Wales to be 13th because if they're 13th and they become suddenly strong, now you're in a very tough group instead of now having Samoa or Japan or someone like that. Anyway, I think one thing to maybe we can finish on is big result happened in Croke Park. Obviously, lots of discourse after that as well. I only watched the first 20-25 minutes. So I think at the time, Munster were leading 14-7. I was like, oh, it looks competitive, but seems like Leinster have enough because they scored quite easy from the own ball. And then all of a sudden, they were pretty much winning 31-7. And obviously, Leinster scored at the end. Jack Crowley was fantastic. The Lions players looked quite rusty. So yeah, there's a lot of discourse, I think, on Irish rugby social media about what this all means and what does this do. And like it'll be so funny if Farrell now selects Prendergrass because I don't think Jack Crowley's stocks have been ever higher. But yeah, there's a lot of feedback from this game.
Huge results. And what a game. Like, Munster were properly up for it. The interviews with Simon Zebo was interviewing players afterwards. It was like Simon Zebo is a laugh normally. And
He
he's
was
sitting
more
there and
up for
he's
it than anyone else.
yeah, and he was celebrating, and then he goes up to Alex Nankivell and is like, "Okay, can we be professional for a second?" And like it came up on the mic, brilliant. Yeah, it was a really good performance. I think the big thing for me was the Munster defensive set. Like defensively, they were up for it. And I think that's really how you have to stop Ireland stroke Leinster. Like for all of the times back in the past. Like every time you want to beat them, you beat them defensively because they are almost guaranteed to get points. It's just the way they are. Like they'll just go and go and go. But if that go and go and go doesn't give you points, it does cause a bit of a hassle. So Munster had the massive defensive set. Tag Byrne, who subsequently found out after the Lions tour had an elbow operation, and that's why he didn't have a full preseason with Munster.
That's crazy.
So he goes on and has that game. Jean Klein was outstanding when he came off the bench. Alex Nankivell came up and played on the wing. Like Leinster didn't even try and exploit him on the wing. Defensively, he's pretty solid. I mean, you can totally find him up, but I mean, he's a big, fast guy as well. Like I don't think it was that much of a hassle. Yeah, it was just great. Jack Crowley was cooking. Like he he's got such an amazing attacking body shape and how he does. Like he can really hide things away relatively
Yeah.
well. Like especially his kicks. That little run into space and then drops it onto the toe and kicks it in his stride is one of them that I'm talking about. So he exploited Leinster as a planned thing, definitely. Like this is where the space is, and he was able to kick it there and sort it out. And yeah, like it can't. The one thing that I will say is Dan Kelly and Tom Farrell were outstanding. Farrell's just got a call up now, but Dan Kelly was properly getting his face in the mix for
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and I was loving it. Just a great effort, and I just like Ethan Coughlin, the nine for Munster. I
Hmm.
honestly didn't know much about him. Guy didn't look out of place. Like he wasn't dominating, but he was doing what he needed to do. But then when you've got a guy like Crowley outside you, who's A, in form and B, got all the experience out of the two of you, like you just kind of send it on.
Hmm.
Great effort, great result. And it's not like it was a penalty kick at the end to win the game. Like
Yeah.
Munster won, and they won flipping well.
Yeah. Look, I think the big concern for Leinster and sort of Ireland is just the attack is just not working. Like I think from all of their games, I read somewhere that they've had most of the ball in all of their games. They're just not doing much with it, and they're not really breaking down attacks. Obviously, they had 0 points against the Stormers. They only scored 2 tries here against Munster. So, just something's not happening with their attacking structure, and yeah, I don't know if it's all on, Prendergast or the back line or Blindall, whatever the case is, but they just, it's becoming relatively easy to sort of just stop and to read and to just contain,
Yes.
which,
That that is huge. I'm
yeah,
sorry. You have nailed it. Like you there's no difference to their attack. It's really is a case of we can set up a defensive plan, and if you as a defensive side have got the discipline and you've got the lungs to keep up with it, you can shut them out.
yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a few questions now. Yeah, I mean, again, it would be so funny because I think Crowley's definitely now the form player. I think you've given Prendergast enough games in the Six Nations to be like, well, you at least have this as a basis whenever we return to you, like maybe either later this year or next year at the World Cup. Like you started pretty much a whole Six Nations campaign. You know, Crowley's playing better. It seems like the attack is playing well off him. And then if Prendergast is the one selected for Chicago, I think three-quarters of well, pretty much everywhere except for Dublin will pretty much go up in smoke. Like it'll be a fire in the streets essentially.
I'm going to go as far as saying I don't even think that the Leinster fans are fully behind Prendergast because Harry
Yeah.
Byrne has been in way better form. I think
Yeah,
like,
but he played against the Sharks. Let's just also put that as a caveat.
but he would have started this game had he not been injured.
Yeah, maybe.
So there's that. So like Prendergast may not even be the first choice at Leinster, so he
Yeah,
can't therefore be at Ireland.
yeah,
But the the shit will hit the fan in no uncertain terms if Prendergast starts all of these tests and Crowley, because Crowley's going to just come on and do his usual bit of save the day. Well,
yeah,
it depends how far down they are or not, is how much he can save them.
yeah,
But he always comes on and makes a difference anyway.
yeah. Sharky, last thing is why do we as podcasters always support Benetton? Like we always get sucked in, and then they, as soon as you try to say, oh, they're looking good, they then lose 43 points to nil.
Against Edinburgh. Like, it's not like it was the Sharks or the Stormers and they came good. Like, it was Edinburgh who, to be honest, have not been that great. And Benetton are the better of the two Italian sides in case they forgot. Very weird, man. It was it was bizarre. Like, that's very much that game where it's just like, cool, we don't even need to do a review on it. Like, there's nothing we really need to talk about. It never happened. It's like that first test against Australia when I was away. Never happened. Just move on to the next one.
Yeah, unfortunately for Benton, it feels like half of their games are those games that they just put away. Okay, let's end it there. Thank you so much for listening to this Rugby Biz podcast episode. Please follow us on our social media platforms to see what's happening in the rugby world. Please also like and share and subscribe to this podcast on Spotify and on YouTube to get, we do a podcast once a week, and we'll definitely be back next week as well. And yeah, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for sharing this podcast. And we'll be back to talk about, the next week of URC, start previewing the November internationals as well. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.